Okay, guys, I was trying to use my pen, but for some reason it's not working, so it's gonna look kind of weird. Hopefully, I can make it better. Let's take a look at what we have in the screen. In the screen, we have four objects. As you can see, we have two triangles, all different colors, different sizes. Two rectangles, same deal, different colors, different sizes. Um, Two of the objects are filled. That's kind of like the intention. So use your imagination and think that they are filled. Now, these objects, they are geometric objects, right? I could have well put circles, pentagons, hexagons, etc. But I just decided to go with triangles and circles. And there are several things that they have in common. You can see that they have a size, okay? So the length of the sides are different. Also, they have a color, and also they can have a property whether they're filled or not. Okay. So what we have learned so far, I can create two classes. One class called triangle, and then another class called rectangle, and then I can pretty much create these properties and methods and so on and so forth. Now, the question is, why do that when I can create one class called geometric object, right? And that's kind of like what you see here in your textbook. It's gonna just show this portion. Let me just make this bigger. I can create a class called geometric object where these properties and methods are applicable or they're common to all different kinds of objects. You can see that we can set the color, and this is a private property. So this is the UML. We can determine whether they are filled or not. We can give them a timestamp, right? So pretty much date of creation. And here you can see that these methods can be applied to either triangles or rectangles, right? And that's kind of like the deal. So this here is called a superclass, right? So I'm going to create a superclass called geometric object. Now, based on that, I can create two different classes. Okay? And you can see here that these are what we call the subclass. And now here we're going to put things that are specific only to circles. Okay, so for example, here we have the get area method. We can get areas for triangles. Here in this case, I have circle and rectangles, or for rectangles. But you know that the formulas are different, right? So there are things in here, right, that are going to work different for rectangles, for example. Okay. Here we have a get perimeter method, which here we can have the same, but you know that the formulas are different. And later in chapter 15 and 14, we're going to deal with that a little different. And then we can set the radius, get the radius. So that's just specific to circles. Here you're going to get width and get height, and set width and set height. Right? So you can see here that now we have properties, okay, and methods that are different for the circle and the rectangle. Okay? So here we have a subclass that it's going to extend to a superclass. So the deal is that when I create a circle and I extend to geometric object, the circle is going to acquire all the properties and methods for geometric object. Right? So it makes it more convenient. So I can come up with a third class called triangle, for example. Okay, and then here triangle will extend to geometric object, and then I can acquire this method. Right? So it's a little better organization. Okay, so how does this work? Let me close some stuff here. Let me open up the simple geometric object superclass. Okay, so I'm just gonna double click in here. And here you're gonna see the superclass. So this is a simple geometric object, that's the name of the class. Here you're gonna see the properties for the superclass. So what this means is that all objects that use the default constructor for the simple geometric object superclass are going to be white and they're going to be filled. Okay? And here you have the no argument constructor. Okay? So technically it's going to set up an object that is white and filled, and then it's just going to give the current date. Here we have another constructor that has two arguments. So this guy is going to specify a color and field, also going to give the date. And then here we have the different methods, right? The getters and the setters, right? For geometric objects. And you can see here that we have, usually we have two methods. One of them is for get the, when it was created. And here we have an override to the toString method. All classes have this method, right? Basically, this is in the system. Later, we're going to see that's just going to give us some funky characters. So what we do is that we can override this method, and then we have basically the ability to print information for the class. That's kind of like the deal. Okay. So let me get circle. So circle is an extension of geometric object. And you can see here the declaration. So you can see it's a public class. This is the name of my class, circle from simple geometric object, and then it extends the superclass. So by having this portion in our header, pretty much means that I'm acquiring the method from this superclass. Okay, and that's kind of like what you see in your textbook here. Here you have the subclass, and then it's an extension to the superclass. So all the properties and methods of this class, they're going to be acquired in here. Okay? So anything that this guy can do, the subclass is going to be able to do. Okay? And then here we have my no argument constructor. Okay, so this is my no argument constructor, and we're going to talk later about some constructor chaining. Very important. Here we have a single argument constructor, two argument constructor, and then we have our getters and setters. Okay? And then here we have another method, right, to print. Okay, so pretty simple. And you can guess that the rectangle is pretty much same deal. You can see that it's a subclass, and it extends the simple geometric object. Now, how do we test this? So let's go to my test program. And notice here that, so this is my test, this is my main. So in this program, we create two objects. We create a circle from simple geometric object, and also we create a rectangle from simple geometric object. Okay. So look that here we have my subclass. So here I'm creating a circle, and then new, and then this is my basically my subclass. So here I'm calling the single argument constructor with 1. Okay, so this is going to set a circle of radius 1. And then once I have that, I can call the different methods, right? So these methods here are from the superclass, get color and toString. Right? So I'm able to call them from the subclass because they're inherited by the subclass. Right? So if I go back to simple geometric object, you're going to see them here. You see, get color is here. If I go to circle, that method is not there. Okay? Because that method applies to both the circle and the rectangle class. They can have both that method. And actually it's not even here, so let's just copy this guy. Let me put it here. Let's put here a rectangle of color, and then let's just set up here. So I have rectangle dot okay, dot And then you can see here we have the method, right? Get color. And you can see here it says simple geometric object, but because it's come from the superclass. And then get height, it comes from the subclass, right? So I can get either method, right? So this is gonna call the method from the superclass and basically run it, right? So and this guy is calling the constructor with the 2 arguments, right? So I can run this. You can pretty much see that it just gives me the information, right, for circle and rectangle. So this code is in your textbook, so I encourage you to go get it and apply it. Let's talk about using the constructors from the superclass. Okay. So here, so when I go circle from simple geometric object, circle is equal to new circle. So here I'm calling a single argument constructor, which is a 1. Okay. Here, when I go back, technically it's calling this constructor, right? And then pretty much it's setting a radius of 1. Now, the thing is that this is acquiring the methods from the superclass, right? So before calling this constructor here, okay, actually what happened is that the subclass calls the constructor from the superclass, because it needs to create that basic object first, right? Which is going to have a color and which is going to be filled and it's going to have a date stamp. Okay, and then it will go from there. So here it will go back to the constructors here. But now I have an issue because I have 2 of them. I have this one and I have this one. Which one are we going to use? Are we going to use this one or are we going to use this one? Okay, so by default, the system is going to use this guy here, the no argument constructor. Okay. So technically here you're going to have a callout that is going to be something like this. Super parentheses comma. Okay. So this is a call to the no argument superclass constructor, and that's fine, right? So I just created a simple geometric object which is white and is filled, and then you go, well, wait a minute, what about if I don't want to do that? Because then you have to go back and set the properties and change them and all that stuff. And let's say, you know what, I want this guy, okay, instead of this one. Okay, so you can do that. You can say, you know what, I actually want to create a simple geometric object that is blue, and then that is not filled, that this is false. Okay, and that's perfectly fine too. Okay, so now here it's just gonna call this super constructor, which is blue and false. Let's save this, and then let's run that. Let's see what happens now. Because now I'm calling my simple geometric object with a radius of 1. Okay, and then notice that now it's saying that it's blue and that it's not filled, right? Because I just call a different super constructor, right? So that's technically using the super keyword. And you can use that also to call methods, so like superclass methods if needed. Let me talk about one more thing, which is basically chaining. It's kind of tricky here. So let's need to look for that code. We go back here to the textbook, and then when it says constructor chaining, let's see here we have this code. Here we have this class that is called faculty, and the class extends employee. And here I have my main method, and then here I have basically building a basic object, It doesn't have a name, right? It just says new faculty. Okay. So what happens here is that this guy is gonna go to this constructor, public faculty. Okay. You can see that here basically I have just this command inside my method. And you have to go back to your textbook and analyze this. Okay, so before calling this print, technically, since I'm extending to employee, let me make this bigger. Since I'm extending to employee, it's gonna call the constructor of the superclass first, right? So it's gonna look for employee, which is right here, and then it's gonna call the constructor. But notice that employee extends to person. Okay, so before getting to this constructor, it needs to call the super or the constructor of the superclass for person. So before calling this line, it's gonna go to person here, okay, and then it's gonna run this, right? So in this constructor, it's just gonna call, it's gonna print this, and then it's gonna go back, right, to this guy, and this guy is calling the constructor for this class, right? So technically, it's calling this constructor, right? So this is the other keyword, and then it's passing this argument. So it's a constructor with one argument. So that will jump to this constructor, and technically it's just going to print the argument, which is the number 2. And then once this is done, it will go back to this point, and then it's going to run number 3. And then when this is done, it needs to go back, so it needs to trace. So you have to trace this yourself to the previous constructor, right? So it came from this guy, right, which is the new employee. So it came to faculty. Okay, so now it's gonna print number 4, right? So try to copy paste this, and you can see that the output is gonna be in this order, right? So this comes from the constructor of the no argument constructor of person. Then it goes back to this guy. So this is the one argument constructor of employee. Then it goes back to this command, and then after this is done, it goes back to the constructor of faculty, and then that will be the last line, right? So you can see the process here from faculty, because it extends to employee, it goes here. So now this is calling the constructor of one argument. It comes here, but before doing this, it needs to go to person, because that's the other extension. Then it's going to perform this task. Then it's going to go back to the line after the super callout. Then it's going to perform this task, and then it's going to go back to the line before the callout of the argument. It's going to perform this task, and then it will go back, and then it's going to perform this task. Okay. So that's pretty much the concept of concept chain.